if you're young and just starting, this is probably the most important video for you about investment. I hear too many people saying, I bought my house, I live now for free. So my question is, if you had a landlord, would you pay him rent? And the answer is yes. So why wouldn't you be your own landlord? In other words, the investor in you owns the money. The resident in you is a tenant. If you want to treat the investor in you right, you'd buy your house and you'd pay the rent. Many people tell you the house you buy and own and live in is not an investment. In their opinion, it's not generating cash flow. But if it is generating cash flow, it is an investment that is worth having, that grows with time, that pays you not only financially but also emotionally, because you have a landlord who would not kick you out, most probably. So next time you think of buying your own house, pay yourself rent. Do not say I'm living rent free, because you budget whatever you have to pay in your life. So in general, some people who have the right planning save a little bit before they start spending, and then they spend the rest. And if you believe that you're living rent free, it means no one is paying for that house, which is not right, which is not true. You will simply spend all the rest of the money. Pay yourself rent if you're a landlord. So let's look at that logically and decide or create a decision for the rest of our lives. Not only do you pay yourself if you're a landlord, but also put your money in your bank. So the money that you're saving today goes not under your name, goes under your bank's name. In other words, you have an investment fund, and that investment fund, although is managed by you, is not owned by you. That investment fund is a commitment you have to your future wealth, success, prosperity, lifestyle. Call it whatever you want to call it. And I believe it's all of those together. So what you end up doing is every money you save goes to that investment fund. Every utilization like that of that, imagine you buy a car for cash. You pay yourself an installment a month with interest. If you've borrowed for your house from a bank, you pay the money back with an interest, while the down payment that you put on a house, in your opinion, is money that's owned by no one, has no right to earn any money or anything like that. But if this money is owned by your bank, would you treat the other bank better than your bank? No. So at least you should pay this money back with interest to your bank, and you can pay it from the property's income. I'm not saying no, but you need to pay it back. So all the money that you save goes to your bank, goes to an investment fund. Now, some of the savings will go to a rainy day fund or emergency fund, but in general, the majority of it go into an investment fund that you run, but no one owns. You don't own. It has solidity in its ownership. It owns itself in a way or other. Item number one. Item number two, I see too many people, and yesterday I was sitting with one of those people who owns a business that he's invested around $150,000 in. And that business that he's invested $150,000 in, to him, is very important and is most of his life. So in a way or another, that business is a standalone entity, and he gives it its budget, and he gives it its cost and cash reserve and the future growth possibilities and all of those. Yet that same person owns a property that he spent around $400,000 on, But that property makes money every year. He takes this money and he runs away with it. He does something else. Every property is an entity. If you were opening businesses, most probably you will invest in each of those businesses less than the amount you invest in a property. So a property is an own entity. So the money it generates is not owned by you. It pays back its loans to a third-party bank and to your bank. And the rest of the money goes under a company, under a property. In other words, the property owns that money. You tell me I'm complicating it for you. Trust me, I'm not. The minute you think of every property as an entity, and the minute that you think of your investment fund as a standalone fund, both will be as successful as your entities and any fund in the world that does great at investing and does investment decisions not based on what you and your wife would want, does investment decisions based on what makes sense. And here we need to infuse sense in some of your choices, but regardless, in general, this is what you need to do. So treat your money with respect, as much respect as you give to the bank's money. At the same time, treat your property as a standalone entity. Each property is a business. And the best plan you can ever have, that I had a long time ago. I had a plan to buy a property and then another, and then another, and then another, until those properties can themselves buy new properties every year. So imagine you bought, let's say, 5 properties. 5 properties are earning, let's say, 600,000 dirhams, and this 600,000 dirhams or dollars or whatever goes into buying another property every year. So in other words, not only are your properties growing on their own, that fund is grown on its own, but also that's without you contributing more, which you should at all times whenever you can, or at all times, because you always can. You just don't prioritize that. So simply, you take that money from the property's revenue every year, you buy a new property that also generates more. So in another 5 years, without any contributions from you, you have 10 properties. And then 10 properties will be able to buy 2 properties a year. That's the velocity of money. That's the infinite return. And the power of that that drive, that momentum is huge. So keep it in your mind. Invest that way. Make sense of your choices, because it really counts. Cheers.